Hello and welcome back to another exciting episode of Can It Take a K26, the show where I take a variety of blasters and see if they can be upgraded using a K26 spring. I am your host, Captain Xavier, and our first contestant today, by popular request, is the Zuru X-Shot Bug Attack Eliminator. Now I know some of you may well be thinking, Quad Est? Surely this series was supposed to be revolvers. Why is he doing a shotgun? Well, when we get into the internals, you will see that this thing kind of was a revolver. And I say was because I've fixed it. Now, I don't know anything really about the X-Shot line. They don't have a fancy Wikipedia page like Nerf does with lovely facts. But I do know that they come with some kind of weird bugs that you stick on the wall and they like tumble down the wall and you're supposed to try to shoot at them. Initially, this blaster was tragic. It only fired one barrel at a time and it didn't fire it very well. They had air restrictors and there's a lot of dead space, but I liked the look of it. I liked the feel of it. I liked the little handguard thing. I liked the size. I liked the big priming handle. And I like there are a whole bunch of things I liked about it, but of course it needed to be Captain Xaviered. And so I painted it to match my general color scheme, put the black on there instead of I think it's green. Yeah, it's green originally. The splats were usually blue. I made them red, and now it looks like a good, proper zombie killing blaster. And then of course I needed to open it up and see what it could take. So we're going to open it up. I already know the answer of whether or not it can take a K26, but we're going to open it up and take a look at it so that you can know the truth. Upon opening it, you will discover that this thing has an absolutely enormous plunger tube for the size. I mean, this thing is as big, if not as long. It's not quite as long, but it is as big in diameter as a long shot plunger tube. It's huge. And the spring that comes with it isn't bad, but it loses most of its power in the air restrictor, which I have, of course, removed. I have kept the dart pegs in, though. But the part that used to be a revolver is the worst part. You'll notice that there is a gap here between the barrel section and the plunger, and that I have filled it in with hose. But originally, there was a revolver there. It was a 6-shot revolver, essentially, but only every other cylinder had a hole, and so when you primed the gun, it would rotate at one position, and so this barrel would fire, but this one would be blocked. You'd prime it and it would rotate one more section, this barrel would be open, and this one would be blocked. And at this, of course, there was no seal of any kind, and so you were losing huge amounts of air and power into this inefficient system. You were then losing huge amounts of air and power into the air restrictor, and it just didn't work well. There's also a fair amount of dead space right here, and people have shortened the gun. You could shorten it, and you could also take off the stock and have yourself just a gorgeous little sawed-off shotgun. However, the reason I did not shorten the barrel is I discovered that at its current length, it fits perfectly into the shotgun holster that's already on my battle pack that was designed for rough cuts, but fits this perfectly also. And if I shortened it, it wouldn't fit in there as well anymore. It would be too far back and I wouldn't be able to reach it. So I decided to go ahead and deal with the little bit of dead space here by compensating by putting a huge amount of spring in it. But the question we of course want to know is, can it take K26? And the answer is no, because the plunger rod is too big. You cannot get K26 around it. So you have to go with bigger spring. And quite a bit bigger, actually. Long shot spring works. I think that is actually what I might have on here. In addition to its original spring is a bit of long shot spring. I'm going to see if there's anything else that I've got that might also fit. I kind of doubt it. But I'm also going to take a look at this and see if this is actually needed anymore. I don't think that is actually the catch mechanism, which means I don't think it has to be there, which means I might be able to remove it, which means I might be able to fit a different spring on there, which would be nice. So, yeah, I think that tab is actually what used to rotate the cylinder. and is therefore, yes, no longer necessary. Okay, so that gives us options. The other nice thing is that the plunger head is screwed on, solidly screwed on, but that means that you can remove it, which makes adding and removing springs much simpler. With that out of the way, we still can't fit K26, obviously, but now we might be able to fit some other springs that previously were getting hung up on that portion. They're also still going to look like that one at least is going to get caught on that. But how's about this one? That one will now fit. And it will fit nicely inside previous one. So I now have 3 different springs in here. Huh. It's actually only coming in at 10 kilograms. It feels like more, but then huge plunger tube, so. All right, let's see if it still primes. Sure enough. The only thing I probably could still do is brass the barrels, but the barrels on this are actually fairly tight, and if I brass them, it would make them considerably more difficult to reload. And since this is a muzzle loader and is used kind of in desperate situations, I want to be able to reload it quickly. Oh, that is gorgeous. All right. So, there you have it. For those of you who are curious what shotgun I was running at Fort Worden, it was the X-Shot Eliminator. No, it cannot take K26. Yes, it can take a heck of a spring upgrade, as well as having its barrels removed and the single-shot revolving system taken out, giving you a absolutely magnificent double-barrel shotgun that I really, really like. All right. On to the next contestant. Our next contestant, keeping with that general theme, is the Zuru X-Shot Rapid Fire, which is a 6-shot revolver, but unlike most revolvers, has a direct primer system, like the Nightfinder or the Fire Strike or any of those blasters that have taken K26 so very, very well. It's got the hook that primes the plunger rod directly, which has been the failing, you may recall, in many of the blasters that had a slide prime. The connection between the slide and the priming hand, or the priming bar, was where the weakness existed. So this doesn't have it. I'm hoping that means that this is a revolver that can take K26. It will, of course, depend on the plunger tube. So let's find out. So let's take a look. Once again, that is a very nice sized plunger tube. I'm surprised by that. And also, once again, the plunger head is screwed on with 2 screws, sideways rather than forward, so you don't have to worry about it stripping out. I am well pleased with that. Let us see if... Ha! Got it. Okay. So, the air restrictor can be removed. Once again, as with the X-Shot Eliminator, the internals are really quite beefy and well made. I'm actually kind of surprised. The quality, the shell quality is definitely better than Busby, though still not as good as Nerf, but the internal quality is really quite excellent. Now, many of you may remember that this was the blaster that people discovered the cylinder was the exact same size as a hammer shot, and people worked out how to replace the hammer shot's 5-round cylinder with this 6-round cylinder, which was neat. Of course, when I first got a hold of these, I got a hold of one at Goodwill that was broken, and I tore out the cylinder and made it into an absolver for ire, giving me a 6-round cylinder for ire to replace the 5-round, which was lovely. That is just so nicely reinforced. They've got one of the screw pegs. Actually, it's just a reinforcement peg. They've got a reinforcement peg right in front of the catch, which means this thing can take so much weight. That is beautiful. This is just a good design. Well done, Zuru X-Shot. Alright, let's button it up and see if it can live up to the hype I've given it. Oh, a little bit too much K26. Not getting enough compression to catch. Okay, well, the answer to the question, can it take a K26, is yes. It just doesn't take it very well. Which is kind of surprising. I had to cut the K26 down so much that it's now kind of, as you can hear, rattling around loose, and thus gives you some grief when you go to prime it. No, I don't like that. Well, there you have it. The X-Shot Rapid Fire can take K26, but it ends up being such a short section of it that it doesn't work very well. So I went with a different spring that was in the bin. Have no idea what it was, but it does now have about a 10 kilogram draw, which is definitely not bad for a revolver. It's not as good as things like the Night Finder or the Pink Crush. However, being a revolver, that means you've got a lot more power and without having to reload, which is definitely preferable. Anyway, on to the next contestant. Our next contestant is the Nerf Spylight. The Spylight was originally released in 2014 as part of the Rebel line and as part of the Secrets and Spies sub-series. It featured a light on the rail attachment that was, I don't know what it was for, but it was a nifty little gizmo. It also has the clear red barrels that lets you read the messages that are on the darts. And in the handle there is a secret little 2-dart holder, which is kind of neat. It is direct plunger, has slam fire, and is, for all intents and purposes, a reshelled strong arm. This one is brand new right out of the box, but still seems to be a little glitchy. And I don't know if that is the gun or if I got a lemon. But we're going to pop it open and find out, and specifically we're going to find out if this thing can take a K26. Well, sure enough, it is basically a strong arm, which the strong arm was able to take K26, so hypothetically, so should this. Alright, so that was a no to the K26. Wasn't going to be enough compression, but yes to a very nice spring upgrade. Still has slam fire, it's coming in nice and beefy. Catch still feels weird. I don't know if that is the design or what. Let's take a look and see roughly what weight it's pulling at now. Alright, well it's coming in at somewhere around 9 or 10 kilograms now, which is not too shabby for a revolver. Quite happy with that, frankly. So there you have it, the Spylight, no K26, yes, spring upgrade. Our final contestant for this final episode of Season 2 of Can It Take a K26 is the Guardian Crossbow. The Guardian Crossbow originally came out in 2013 as part of the Rebel line. It has a direct plunger and normally would have a faux crossbow prod going back to a little thing that gets pulled, so it vaguely looks like you are pulling a crossbow. It also usually has a stock, of course, but as you will no doubt notice, I have removed both of those features to make it into a very nice pistol that is front primed, which is a really neat thing for a pistol of this size. It is also basically a reshelled strong arm, but there's nothing in the world wrong with that. You will notice, of course, I've already modded it. I've removed the stock and I've removed the prod, but I'm going to go ahead and open it up and basically go over whether or not it can take a K26. I don't actually remember now. But we'll proceed as if we didn't know. Let's find out. Okay, so taking a look at the internals, they're actually a little bit more complicated than that of the long shot, in the fact that it has this front priming mechanism. That front priming mechanism is going to result in this blaster being, shall we say, finicky. That is a no for the Guardian Crossbow. The priming mechanism, the front priming mechanism, is not strong enough to support K26. However, it was able to take a very nice spring upgrade and shoots lovely now. Front pump is beautiful. It does have slam fire, but for some reason when you slam fire it, it gets abysmal performance, whereas firing it single shot seems to work wonderfully. No idea why that is, but that seems to be the case. So, let's take a look at the scores. For those of you keeping score at home, that was a no for the X-Shot Eliminator, but yes to a massive spring upgrade. It's got 3 springs in here now. That was technically a yes for the X-Shot Rapid Fire. That was a no for the Rebel Spylight, but yes to a spring upgrade. And finally, that was a no for the Rebel Guardian Crossbow, owing to the finicky nature of the front prime, but yes to a spring upgrade. So, there you have it. Technically, we only had one winner, and that was a questionable one, so not a particularly good episode for Can It Take a K26, but we went through a number of revolvers that had been asked for by fans, as well as the shotgun used in the Fort Worden War. If you have any suggestions, comments, ideas for future episodes, go ahead and leave them in the comments below. Next season will include magazine-fed blasters, so don't worry about that. But any other things that you want to see, go ahead and leave those in the comments below. And as always, thank you for watching.